Welcome back to the MMA Plug, powered by DenverSportsBetting.com, Colorado's only live and local MMA show, coming to you on Mile High Sports 98.1 FM and streaming on MileHighSports.com. Ron Kruck and Jordan Kurtz with you. Hit us up during the show on the Go Fast Energy text line, 303-831-1340, 303-831-1340. Man, it's time to talk some Bellator MMA, and I am very excited to bring in a man who has been a part of this sport from basically the beginning. He started off his epic career as a referee at UFC 2 and then went on to become one of the most recognizable refs in MMA history. These days, you can hear him doing his podcast, Weighing In, with former world champ Josh Thompson, and of course, calling Bellator fights, which he will do this weekend. Let's get it on and bring in John McCarthy. Hey, John, it's Ron Kruck and Jordan Kurtz in Denver. Welcome to the MMA Plug, my man. I probably owe you money for using your tagline, don't I?
You don't owe me a damn thing, Ron. It's good to talk to you, brother.
You too, man. We're so glad to have you on. A lot of topics to hit on, but let's begin with Bellator's first event of the year, going down this Saturday on Showtime, and a main event featuring champion Patricio Pitbull Ferrer and the incredibly tough Emmanuel Sanchez in a featherweight tournament matchup. John, Sanchez gets a second shot at Pitbull, and the winner punches their ticket to the finals of the Bellator Featherweight World Grand Prix against AJ McKee. Give us your thoughts on this matchup.
You know, it's a fantastic matchup because if you go back to their first fight, they both hurt each other several times in that fight. You can go back and look at it. I thought I had the fight, it was in Israel. And I think during the broadcast going into the final round, I had it 2-2. I had each guy win in 2 rounds, and whoever was going to get the 5th round was going to get it. Pitbull got it. He hurt Sanchez in the 5th round. That was the determining factor in my mind, which actually gave him the fight. But It was close. And there was things that both guys did that were good. There was things that both guys did where they made some mistakes, giving an opportunity to their opponent. So there's a lot for both of them to look at and go, all right, I need to change this up. I need to do this more. And I think that, if you're looking at it, Sanchez is a guy, he's got so much talent. He's got a gas tank, Ron. I love fighters that have gas tanks. I love guys that push the pace, push the action, and break your will, break you physically with conditioning. He's got that ability, but Pitbull has gotten so good at being able to control the pace and the place of the fight. We'll see if Emmanuel can actually make that happen and make him have to work past that comfort level.
Great point.
John, how much do you think with it being a rematch that it is going to potentially help Matador be able to learn how to maybe attack the champ a little bit more efficiently than he did in the previous fight?
I think it's huge. I think that the fact that this is a guy that has been in there for 5 rounds with the champ, he knows the power that he has. He goes, I've been there. I felt it. I know exactly how it can hurt me, and I know what I need to do to make it so that doesn't happen. That helps him. I always look at, to be the challenger is always easier than to be the champ, because the challenger has a target. They have something that they can hone in on. While the champ has got to, it's almost like a status quo. If I win, I just get to keep what I have. Where if I'm the challenger, I get that title and I get that step up in pay and I get all these things that come with it. So it's so difficult. That's why, when you see someone that has a reign like an Anderson Silva or, Pitbull as what he's going on now, it's so impressive because as the champion, you don't, every time you fight is not you at 100%. There's nights where you feel great, and there's nights where, you'd like to be somewhere else. You feel like crap, but you find a way to win. And that's when you get these guys like the George St. Pierre's, and they're just amazing people, amazing fighters.
Yeah, great breakdown. This fight is going to be a lot of fun. I thought Pitbull's power in that first fight was really the key. We'll see if that's the case this one. And Sanchez, I mean, after losing that decision, I mean, he's rebounded very nicely and evolved his game. I love this matchup. Hey, John, before we talk about the co-main event, I mentioned it. The winner will get a shot at AJ McKee, who, of course, is the son of MMA vet Antonio McKee, still undefeated. I mean, this guy is, to me, is the future of the sport. You've seen a lot of athletes inside that cage. Just how good is this kid?
He's John Jones good. I don't know any other way to say something. Wow. This kid is so good. And I've known AJ since he was a little kid.
Right.
And it's, and I've always wanted him to do well. And there's things that I saw early on in his career that I was like, you're not getting it, son, because you are talented. You're so talented, but talent will only take you so far. You have got to work. You got to put in the hours. You got to always be looking for that next thing that's going to be, oh, I can pull this off, or I learned this. And so in this situation, I'm going to be doing this. You've always got to be evolving. If you stop evolving, and that's what happens with a lot of fighters when they're so good, it's like, oh, I get away with doing this all the time. There's going to be someone that's going to stop it. And so, early in his career, I was always on AJ saying, hey, are you trained? Are you in shape? You don't look to me like you're in shape the way you would get mad at me and stuff. He had one fight. He had a fight against a guy named Brian Pikeman Moore. It was in Ireland, and he was exhausted, and he felt everything that we had talked about, how miserable it is to be in that situation. And he was good enough to pull off the fight. He got the win, finished the fight, but he learned from it. And he went into the gym and rededicated himself, and he came out twice the fighter that he was. Wow. And so right now, I'm telling you, I look at this fight with, Pitbull and Sanchez, and these guys are awesome. And I go, that's a pick'em fight. And you can say, and the winner gets to fight that dude?
Yeah, no doubt.
He is, John Jones is probably the most talented guy overall, body style and length and everything that he could do, and fighter IQ. Incredible. AJ McKee, he's that guy. He's got that long body. He's got a huge reach. He's fast. He's way faster than John was comparatively. Obviously, as a featherweight, he's going to be faster than the light heavyweight, but comparatively, he's way faster. I think he's physically just a little more gifted even than John. And so everything with AJ is about, what does AJ do? What does he do up here? What does he do as far as the work that he puts in? Because if he wants to be that guy, he's got all the talent in the world to be that guy.
John, as you mentioned, AJ he's a phenomenal talent. He's a second generation MMA fighter, and we're starting to see more of those guys, and that just maybe even call it the third generation. These kids now, we have kids at the gym who are training jiu-jitsu, who are pulling off crazy transitions, and they're 6 and 7 years old. How do you foresee, or what is it that you really see the boom to potentially be in the next, 10, 15, 20 years in MMA with these kids?
Well, and it's happened from the beginning, because I always look and say, Royce Gracie was the 1.0 version. He was that single style guy who his will and his style overcame your style and what you were good at. You could even be the better athlete. He would just, come in and win. And that was that 1.0 style. And then you got into guys like, Randy Couture and Chuck Liddell kind of brought two things in. Randy brought in the great Greco-Roman wrestling and the ability to take you down, but the ability to dirty box you and to beat you up on your feet that close together, to the point where he would wear you out physically, just to the point where you couldn't compete anymore. Chuck was a little bit different, used wrestling to stay on his feet.
Right.
And you get into the BJ Penns and the 3.0s. I look at, George St. Pierre was the 4.0, John Jones 5.0, and now I look at the AJ McKees. We're reaching those 6.0s as far as that evolution. And it's just going to continue, because there's, like you said, so many kids. When I had my gym, I had kids pulling things off that I went, oh my God, how did he do that? And that's what you're going to see. You're going to be seeing that coming up in the future. Just think about the difference we used to say, who's going to do a tornado kick in MMA? Nobody. Oh, they do them all the time now because, guys pull off stuff that we always said that will never happen. They made us liars.
Von Flue chokes are making a comeback. Everything's making a comeback. It's unbelievable. We are honored to have MMA icon, Big John McCarthy, on the MMA Plug as we're breaking down this big Bellator card this Friday. Let's quickly talk about the co-main event, John. Two top welterweights, Neiman Gracie and Jason Jackson. Gracie, we all know what he does. 9 submission wins in his 10 career victories. Got a heel hook of John Fitch last time out, which is crazy to say. Meanwhile, Jackson on the opposite side of the cage, he's 3-1 in the Bellator cage, and he's coming off that huge win over Benson Henderson. Give us your thoughts and break down this co-main event.
Well, I'm going to break it down in 2 ways. First, Neiman Gracie. This is a guy, yes, he's got that Gracie name, and that's not an easy thing to have because there's a lot of pressure that comes with wearing that name. But this is a guy, his submission game, Ron, and everyone goes, well, oh, he's a Gracie. Of course he's got a submission game. It doesn't always transfer over. To MMA, that doesn't always happen where those submissions come off the same when you're in an MMA cage where people are punching you in the head and stuff. So his submission game is fantastic. He's got incredible chokes, but it's his leg lock game that is so dangerous. He is outstanding. And, you're talking about that John Fitch, and it says heel hook, and it was, but it was also a knee bar at the same time. He had him 2 ways. And so you're looking at him, and that's what makes him special. He can pull that kind of thing off against a guy who is, been pretty much submission proof for a lot of his career. Damian Maia couldn't submit John Fitch.
Yeah.
And,
great point.
Neiman comes in there and he pulls off just a beautiful submission. He's good on the ground. He's good in the stand-up, but he doesn't do things like the other, Gracies do, and he doesn't do things like wrestlers do as far as his takedowns. Most of his takedowns, if you're watching, they come from body locks. He does inside trips, outside trips. He does little, tilts that we talk about that he offsets their balance, and all of a sudden they're going down. So that's what Jason Jackson has to stay away from. And Ron, Jason Jackson was part of LFA. And I will tell you right now, I know that there's, on that record, it says 3-1 with Jason Jackson. He had a fight against Ed Ruth. It was a battle. It was a war. But there's no doubt in my mind he won that battle. He should be on a 7-fight win streak right now. He is so much better than even he was when he was at LFA. He's just got better and better with the guys that he's training with at Sanford MMA and what they're doing. He's got a jab, and you just don't see a lot of guys with a solid, stiff, mind-altering jab that when it hits you, it's like, where did that come from? Jason Jackson has got that. He actually has a good ground game. He just doesn't use it because he likes the stand-up.
Right.
But you look at those wins. He came in on a week's notice and beat, Kunamoto in Hawaii and beat him bad. And Kunamoto was, 23-4 at the time or something like that. Just smoked him in that. Then he fought Jordan Mean, who I've known Jordan since he was a young kid. Right. And Jordan is a hell of a fighter. And he just picked Jordan apart in that fight to the point he broke him down. Yeah. And then he comes in, he did the same thing to Benson Henderson. He won every round of that fight. And Benson is a hard guy to fight against. He's so talented and he's so good everywhere. It's hard to look good against him, and Jason looked great against him. So this fight, Bellator came out with their rankings, and they had Douglas Lima obviously as the number champion, and they had Michael Page as number 1, and I think Neiman was under him. And I looked and I said, man, Neiman should be above that, and Jason Jackson right now is fighting at a level I think he should be above that. And I would love to see sometime Jason Jackson and Michael Page actually be put into that cage together.
Heck yeah.
John, now we're a big sports gambling show. Obviously, we're sponsored by Denver Sports Betting. I have to ask you what your thought process is as far as where the over-under on this fight lies, being that Jackson has a tendency, or at least through his last 5 fights, he's gone the full distance, whereas in the last, I believe it's 6 of 7, Gracie has a finish. So where do you see this potentially coming into play?
For entertaining purposes only, John.
Only, yeah.
I mean, that's where, of course.
I would look and say it's kind of interesting if you think about it, because like I said, Jason's, fighting out of Sanford MMA, which used to be Hard Knocks 365, which used to be the Black Zillions, but there's a guy who is training there now by the name of Rory McDonald, who's in the PFL, but he's got a win, the only win against Neiman Gracie. And that's a good person for Jason Jackson to get some feedback from, to train with. He's also got guys like Gilbert Burns, Herbert Burns there. He's got a bunch of really solid jiu-jitsu guys. So he's going to be prepared for it. I would say if you're betting in this is definitely to the over. I would go, this thing probably in my mind is going to go the 3 rounds.
Great analogy. So we got to wrap up here pretty quickly, John, but I want to hit on some big topics just overall in the sport of MMA right now. You spent a lifetime in that cage, man. Now you've transitioned very seamlessly to the broadcasting side. When you are calling fights or if you're cage side at Bellator, if you're watching a UFC event and you're seeing this referees today, what is your overall assessment of the current state of MMA refereeing?
Overall, the refereeing is good. The problem is we have a lot of discrepancy in the way people look at what the referee's role is and what the rules really are. And they sometimes try to inflect their own feelings on what that rule should be. Mm-hmm. Now, that doesn't mean that, I like someone that, they're letter of the law. Black and white as far as the written word, that's, I used to say the only thing black and white in this world is the police car. Okay. Yeah. Everything else is gray, and it's your ability to work with it in between that makes you who you are and makes you a smart person. I look at, some of the calls, and, we had the changing of the bantamweight title in the UFC based upon a foul.
Right.
And the referee was well within his right there. I know Aljamain Sterling's going to hate me again for what I'm saying, but when you're the official in that situation, it's not only about what the rule says. When you're looking and saying, because fighting is so different as far as what occurs with fouls, because there's not a lot of leeway for the referee. And, it's like you can take a look at any sport. You can take a look at the Denver Broncos, and if, the Denver Broncos, when they were playing in the Super Bowl, we'll say that, Peyton Manning got mad at, whoever, Bennett on the Seattle Seahawks. And we'll say that he takes his helmet off and he hits him in the head with the helmet. Well, we're going to say that, that's illegal. That's a foul. You can't do that. In fact, we're going to take this game and it goes to the Seattle Seahawks, and the Super Bowl trophy goes to the Seattle Seahawks based upon this one element that can happen, within it.
In the heat of the moment.
Yeah. And you go, do you really think that Peter Yan was intentionally trying to knee him as a foul? I do believe that he intentionally threw the knee. But do you think that he believed that in that position it was a foul? That's where I think, no, I don't think he did, because we had a referee that called him down when his hand went down. And when his hand went up, that's when your knee came. Because we have a fighter, and fighters, I hear, Aljamain's going to say, you're going to tell me a champion doesn't know the rules. Yep. I'm going to tell you champions all the time don't know the rules. Okay. And, the same as Aljamain doesn't know the rules because he said, I thought it was going to be a no contest. Well, if you were this fighter that knows all the rules, you know that in the 4th round, that can't be a no contest. So there's all kinds of things that fighters don't know. And Aljamain is an incredible fighter. He got fouled, no doubt about it. But when you take a look at the sport, there's a reason why we haven't had a disqualification happen that often, especially a changing of a world title based upon it. And so you take a look, you say, what is best for the fighters in this situation? I thought it was best for Aljamain Sterling and his health to say the fight's over. All right. So we're going to say the fight's over. But now let's say, okay, we've got that. That's what's best for the fighter here, because I don't want to put him back in this fight if he got, concussed by that knee. We'll say, he got hit hard, so it's a possibility. So now what's best for the sport, what's best for the fans and what's best for the promotion itself. It's never good when a title is not won.
Great point.
And in this situation, it wasn't won. It was given. It was rewarded to someone based upon an action, a foul that wasn't something that was deliberate with malice. It was a mistake. And I think it was a mistake based upon confusion with what the referee was doing as far as saying he's down with the hand going down, and then the hand comes up, and now we launch the knee. And you got to figure, Peter Yan is a Russian. He speaks Russian. Even if you go in the back and you're going to talk rules, you're talking through an interpreter. And so sometimes it doesn't come out as cleanly as it needs to. And so I just looked at it and said, if I was in there, I would have definitely taken points for the knee, and I would have made the judges. They had 3 rounds already on the books. I'm going to have you score that 4th round, and we will go to a technical decision. And if Aljamain wins the title, then he gets the title. If he doesn't, then it goes to Yan, and we have a technical decision that happens, or it's a draw. And it probably would have ended up being a draw. Now that I know the scorecards, it would have ended up being what we call a majority draw, and that means Yan keeps his title, but no one gets a loss. But that's just that's just the way to do it.
Yeah. One last question from me, Big John. You were around from the initial events here in Denver, Colorado. Denver MMA has carved a pretty massive presence within the sport right now as it currently stands. What are your thoughts to how our box state here in the Rocky Mountains has kind of blown up the last few years?
I'll tell you what, as far as the state of Colorado and the area of Denver and the elevation, there's always been that, hey, go work at elevations. Guys in California would go up to Big Bear and stuff. Well, Denver is a perfect city as far as things. And you look at the fighters that are fighting out of there now. There is a slew of good fighters out of a couple of camps there in the Denver area. You got the Grudge Gym, you have Elevation, you have all those things. Man, you guys have got some stud fighters, some that are very well known, some that aren't really well known, and that's the one thing like Ron, he gets to see some of these guys, the LFA guys. I love the LFA, because these are the guys you're going to see in the future stepping up in levels. And when you see them fight, there's ones that you look at and you go, oh, that guy's going to do well. He's going to continue on. There's ones you look at and you go, he's a tough dude. He's a tough fighter. He just doesn't have the skills to stay with that really good fighter for very long, but there's guys that have moved on. But the Denver's fight scene and the fighters in Colorado, they can fight with anyone, man. And they got great trainers like, Trevor Whitman's fantastic there. Elliot Marshall does a great job with guys' ground games and everything. Everybody that's there, just fantastic.
We appreciate that. Yeah, how this sport has exploded since UFC 1 here in 1993 is incredible. Before we let you go, put you on the spot for one last time, Big John. As you look at the sport in general, so many changes since those early days. So many changes even in the past 5 years. For you, what would you like to see changed rule-wise, or what is the biggest issue with the sport of MMA today? And I'm going to wind you up and just let you go.
Well, I'll tell you, put me on the spot there. There's so many issues within the sport as far as, little kingdoms for individuals that don't want to change anything. The sport is evolving. The fighters are evolving. And as a community, the officials, the commissions, the promotions, all have to figure out, we need to evolve with the sport, or we're going to be holding it back and actually killing small parts of it. Now, it's not an easy thing to do, but we should always be looking to see what is better. What's the next step that's going to make things better, again, for the fighters, for the fans, for the promotion. Judging is a big thing. Well, we don't do our judges any favors with the judging system that we give them. Now, we've talked about changing it, but there are people out there that are part of, influential, organizations within this sport. They don't want to change them. They'll sit there and they'll complain about things, but they don't want to change them because they don't like change. People are afraid of change. But we need to be looking towards what rules are going to be safe for fighters, but actually improve the action of the fight. what things can we do for our judges to give them a little bit more? So, when the fan sees that, this fighter over here actually wins the fight and the judge has already given, a score for 2 rounds and he sees that good round, but he's stuck. We give them a little bit more options and saying, all right, here's what we can do. And we can make it better. So the right decisions are being made most of the time. You're never going to get 100%. That's asking too much, but as close as you can get, that's what we should be looking for. Follow
up quickly, yay or nay, real-time scoring that Kansas is using. You like it? Are you a fan or not so much?
It really doesn't matter to me. My biggest problem with it is it doesn't improve the judging. In fact, the only thing it
at
can
least
do,
if it's bad judging.
Yeah, the only thing you can do is actually make the judging worse with it, because you could get somebody that sees that, oh, I'm not with my other officials, and instead of I have a close round, I'm going to go this way, so I'm closer to what they are. I'm not saying it would happen, but it would happen.
It would happen.
Yeah.
Big John McCarthy, thank you so much for the time. Great insight as always. We wish you the best of luck on the broadcast at Bellator 255 this Friday. Thanks, and come on the show anytime, my man.
Hey, anytime you want me, you got me, Ron. Love you guys.
Love you, guys. Take care, man.